Hey, it's John Hope Bryant, and I'm live, really at a crossroads for America. Um, we are experiencing rioting in many American cities like we haven't seen since the Civil Rights Movement. I see you all signing on. Hey, my friend Lamont from Oakland, I'm sorry for the tragic death of the police officer there last night and the injury of the protesters. Any protester, legitimate protester that was injured in all this, my heart goes out to you. The family of George Floyd, my heart goes out to you. We've got to honor George Floyd. We've got to get justice for George Floyd. This was not the death, this was the murder of George Floyd. But it wasn't the conscious murder in this sense of this police officer. And since he said, I'm going to murder you, I don't think he cared one way or the other. I think it was just radical indifference. Like, you know, you live, you die, matters not to me. And that's part of what I want to talk about today is matters not to me. What you're dealing with here is radical indifference. What Dr. King dealt with was love and hate. Some people saying I love you, some people saying I hate you, and then they loved him, they marched with him in the Civil Rights Movement, like my mentor, Ambassador Andrew Young. If they hated him, then they're members of the Klan, and they made that membership known. But there was a role they took on one or the other. What has happened in the last 20 or 30 years, and which is why we've not gotten traction on police reform, why we've got not traction on poverty eradication or poverty reduction, why we've seen affirmative action fall away, while we've seen minority small businesses not thrive, while we've seen the educational institutions that serve black communities, HBCUs, not being supported. We've seen, and this is just the health disparities in black and brown communities, the wealth divide, the income inequality divide, the lack of intelligent public policy for the underserved, the lack of a living wage for so many people. What you've seen is radical indifference from both parties, from all leaders, city, state, federal. It's just not love or hate, just whatever. And people say this is not about money. The heck is not. Look, wake up, people. Wake up. The world runs on wealth and it ignores poverty. Worse, it penalizes poverty. My Jewish friends get stomped, get discriminated against. There's some people in the world that hate Jews. I mean, hate Jews, but they're not stepping on their neck. You hear me? There's some people who hate Jews, hate them, but they're not stepping on their neck. Police officers are stepping on their neck. Why? There are repercussions. Because the police officer that would do that might be living in an apartment building owned by the Jewish guy. Might be going to a store owned by a Jewish guy. His supervisor might be a Jewish guy or a lady. Whatever. The fact my Jewish brothers and sisters, they own stuff. They vote. They participate. They're powerful. There's only so much you can do before you hurt yourself. You can hit them with your fist, but really you're hitting them with your face on their fist. In other words, you may win the battle, but you're going to lose the war. There are repercussions to hurting the Jewish community. There are no repercussions, they thought, to hurting black America. It's not because most blacks are poor, because we don't vote, because we're not stakeholders, we're not homeowners, we're not small business owners, we don't hold positions of power and authority. They thought that they could just sort of ride right over us, literally and figuratively, and no one would matter. So what I love about what's going on right now is the protesting. I love that we have stood up and said, no mas, no more. 100 people dead unjustly. By the way, I support law enforcement. And by the way, the officer that was killed in Oakland was a black man. So you cannot paint this as some kind of racist white conspiracy or that all police officers are bad, right? A lot of people I know are police officers and they are black. And I know black firemen and firewomen. I know people who are color who love our community and are in law enforcement, are good people. So let's not draw a broad brush here. But just like in the civil rights movement, when you had bad people with a badge on who are Klansmen at night and police officers during the day, yes, that can happen today. And yes, I'm sure it is happening today. And the guy who did this to George Floyd just might be one of those. So you have bad apples everywhere. But guess what? I got bad apples in my family. Right? You got the bum factor everywhere. I got 20% of bums in my family, 20% of bums in the Republican Party, 20% of bums in the Democratic Party, 20% of bums who are white, 20% of bums who are black, 20% of bums who are Latino. There are bums everywhere. There are bums in law enforcement, and we have got to make them pay. And the way you make them pay is to be thoughtful and intelligent, and when this happens, to have a plan and an outcome. So if you are protesting peacefully and intelligently, you are the pride of this nation, and you're making democracy work. But if you are not, if you are looting, if you are burning buildings, if you're part of, like, by the way, the highest levels of government told me today that we've been infiltrated. I've seen this movie before. We've been infiltrated by masked white men who are burning and looting in the last 2 days to undermine a legitimate movement. My problem are the brothers and sisters who are somehow co-signed on this, and let's burn and loot too. Down with all this stuff. Let's burn it down so we can build it up. What are you going to build up? And what are you burning down? I'm not suggesting you should burn down anything, by the way. But if you're going to burn something down, you're going to be big bad, go up against the police. Go up against the National Guard. March up on the police base, or the police department, or the military base. March up on the National Guard base and try that stuff and see how well that works against tanks, right? But why are we burning down J.C. Penney's? Why are we burning down AT&T? Don't you know who works there? Black people, brown people. Why are we looting malls? Don't you know who work there? Black people, brown people. Why are we burning down small businesses? Don't you know who owns that? Black people, brown people, struggling white people. We're like, what are we doing? What are you getting? You're burning down what for what? You're not building nothing up, because just like the Rodney King riots, you're going to be prison, probation, parole, or dead, or just irrelevant if you don't come out of this with an intelligent plan. I've seen this movie before. I've seen my friends murdered. I've seen my friends jailed. I've seen what happens when you win the battle with emotions but lose the war because you were not thoughtful about this. People are citing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and saying what he said, that violence is the voice of the unseen and the unheard. Riot and violence are the voice of the unseen and unheard. He's acknowledging and is not endorsing and co-signing a movement. He's saying, I understand that people think that my movement of civil rights is not enough. I understand that people think that the patience of what I'm doing is not enough. By the way, that was for civil rights bill that we are still, the reason you can march today, the reason we got the progress today is because of what he and Andrew Young and so many others, Dr. Dorothy Height and Coretta Scott King and others did back then, mostly. But so it wasn't the firebrand that got the change. It was them that got the change. But he acknowledged that was not enough for some people, and it wasn't enough for him. Like, he became very, very frustrated right before he was assassinated. I get it. He gets it. Ambassador Young, who's 88 years old, who's on his right hand, he gets it. But the looting and the burning of buildings, Andrew Young cried 2 nights ago. I cried with him because we are messing with our brand. People want to write you off and say that you are a thug, that you are lawless, that you don't have home training, that you are unmanageable, that you can't manage your own affairs. See, I told you so. I told you they were animals. We're just feeding right in that narrative. So number one, I support the protesters. And I support the protesters. Number two, I was looking at the comments. We need to acknowledge that people infiltrating this movement and not allow them. You see some white guy with a mask on burning some buildings, grab his rear end and say, you better get out of here, right? Because they're going to blame it on you, not blame it on him. You see a young black man who don't know any better co-signing that, grab him and say, who's your mama, your daddy? Let's take you back home, or you got to have to change your energy and be with us, because all you're doing is hurting the movement and you're hurting George Floyd's legacy. Anybody who thinks that looting is going to get you somewhere was not around in the Rodney King riots of 1992 or the Watts riots of 1960. I think it's circa 1965, I believe it was. You weren't around. I wasn't around for the Watts riots. I was just born, but I was around and involved in 1992. And as Najee Ali from LA reminded me, we have seen this movie before. We've been here before. Those who engage in looting and burning, or you're just burning down your own neighborhoods, you're burning down where your friend got a job, you're burning down the businesses and homes of people who look like you, you're in your own neighborhood. What are you doing? For what purpose? And you're going to be written off as cray-cray, right? And then you have a third group. So first group, legitimate protesters. I love you, I love you, I love you. And before we get off this broadcast, I've got an offer because I want to help you. Hear me? I want to help you. Hey, Wendy Prophet, my former assistant. Kevin, why can't people see that black folks aren't making any cocktail bombs? That's white people burning and vandalizing. Because they have masks on, and because, they have masks on. And, and by the way, there's legitimate white folks marching with legitimate black folks on the peaceful movement. So some people think that the folks looting and we don't do Molotov cocktails. That's not how we roll, right? Black people, right? But people just assume, well, that must be the same group, right? And you got anti-democracy groups, you got white nationalist groups, you got a lot of folks who are trying to upend the legitimacy, the moral authority of what we're doing. And let me quote somebody else. You want to quote Dr. King? Let's quote Malcolm X. We've been bamboozled. We've been tricked. We've been fooled. We are being played. And we have got to stop playing in the hands of people who mean us no good. There are legitimate protesters. Be with them. All of America. You want change? This is the way to get it. That's the beautiful part about democracy. Then you've got infiltrators who, just like 1992, just like 1965, and just like in 1964 when Dr. King was assassinated, his legitimate march was undermined by folks sent in to cause a ruckus and break windows to break up his legitimacy. And they sent in actually black agitators, white folks, illegitimate white folks. And there's some really wonderful white folks who want to help. I've been getting emails all day and all night at 2 in the morning, people who want to help, good people. But illegitimate backwards white folks who want nothing but harm and destruction paid these black folks to go in there and break windows in 1964 that led to Dr. King's assassination. And that is happening to this day. Then you got a third group. This movie repeats itself over and over. Then you got a third group who are just young, who are 17 years old, weren't alive for any of this stuff, 25 years old, don't know about the Rioting riots, and they burning up stuff and looting stuff. Why? Because they're just frustrated and it seems like the place to be, and they can get some free stuff. Let's just call it what it is. And we need to grab them and give them some discipline. Because if you don't pay for it, it ain't yours, and you're hurting us, you're not helping us, and this is no time for play and go and get some new sneakers, right? All this looting in malls, all this looting of the stores, the phone store, it just needs to stop, right? The NFL player just earlier today I saw black NFL player went and grabbed a dude, white guy, breaking into his car, busting his windows of his car in a residential neighborhood in LA. He's like, hey man, this ain't got nothing to do with George Floyd, and what are you doing messing with my car? Like, you messing with the wrong one. And the guy ran like nobody's business, because once you deal with these punks, they cannot deal with the heat. They're not there for a movement. Andrew Young did not duck a blow. John Lewis didn't duck a blow. Dr. King didn't duck a blow. They dealt with it. They said, if you don't know what you're willing to die for, you aren't fit to live. So if you're gonna play this game, play it right. You're gonna be big and bad, then go up against the military, go up against the police officers. Don't be messing with small business. These small business owners didn't do anything to you. These retailers didn't do anything to you. In most places, we're working there. It was the NBA, not the NFL. J.R. Smith, my bad. Thank you, Shelley. NBA player, not the NFL player. I'm just so amped up right now. I got the right thing wrong, but you cleared it up for me. So. Please, John, you really have to help a black brother here. I'm from Nigeria. I'm sorry, Nigeria. I love you. I can't help Nigeria at the moment. I'm trying to keep America straight at the moment. We're going to come back, and I love Africa. We're going to be back at you. So, look, I want your comments. I want you to share this on your page. I want you to start a conversation. I want you, people say, oh, John, you can always tell when somebody doesn't know their history, right? Well, John, what you talking about, man? You little sellout, whatever. You little rich dude. You don't know nothing about this movement. You ain't out here taking these blows. What have you done for black people? Hello, I've seen 2 deaths before I was 9. One right in front of me. Best friend killed. Next door neighbor killed. My friends, Andre, roughed up by police. I was roughed up by police. Rodney King, homeless, 18 years old, South Central LA. Rodney King riots, right in the middle of it. Saw my brothers and sisters locked up, murdered, killed. The Operation, where do you think Operation came from? The Rodney King riots of 1992. What did I do with that, right? What's my Instagram quote? What's the quote on this page? That anger is not a business plan. Sorry, anger is not a strategy, and being frustrated is not a business plan. Right? So here's my offer to you guys, right? So I've created Operation Hope, right? To help us help ourselves. As one of the legs, social justice is a leg, right? Civil rights is a leg, civil rights is a leg, silver rights. And you think this is not about money? You try doing something without money. You try even doing these marches or protests without paying the gas station to give you some gas to go there, or the cell phone bill, not paying the cell phone bill that we're communicating on the social media. Everything is around you about money. The problem is we don't have any. We don't have any wealth. Right? And that's why we've been written off, because we're poor. They're only messing with us because we're poor. I'm tired of us being poor and without options and without voting rights. Without exercising votes, because we didn't vote in the last election, right? En masse, we got to stop this stuff, and we got to step up into our greatness. Look, folks, even these white nationalists, even spray painted the Freedmen's Bank building that I helped to get renamed in Washington, D.C., which is the only building in honor of black slaves on the Washington Mall at the White House. We don't even know our history. No one's even saying, hey, don't do that. You can't do that, man. You can't spray the Freedmen's Bank building. That was our blood there. That's 400 years of black slaves who then fought in the war as Union soldiers, and they put every dollar they had in that bank. And Frederick Douglass ran that bank. Abraham Lincoln chartered that bank to teach free slaves about money. A black pastor from New York created the bank vision. I know my history. Do you? Do we? Are we just running around dramatic? Like, no one's even saying, don't spray paint the Freedmen's Bank. Hey, man, you can't do that. Hey, man, you messing with us. Hey, girls, go sit down somewhere. We have an organized, professional, thoughtful approach to this. And we have an outcome, and here's what it looks like. Again, what did Malcolm X say? He said, we've been bamboozled. We've been tricked. We've been fooled. Hello. I don't want you tricked and I don't want you fooled. I want you focused, right? So we have been here before. And I want you to go, I'm ending now. I want you to go pursue your justice. I want the world to hear your voice. I want you to amplify. But we have got to do this in a way that doesn't just win the battle, but wins the war too. Do you understand me? Are you hearing me? And Operation Hope is but one example of what came out of that in the Rioting riots. There were thousands, tens of thousands of protesters. Where did that end? Tens of thousands of people breaking up stuff. Where did that end? Where did they end up? Do you know their names? No. Many of them dead. Many of them still in prison. Many of them had a record or so of that, but not sitting at the tables of power. But what did I do? What did some other people do? What did Najee Ali do? What did Maxine Waters do with Community Bill? We took that frustration and turned it into positive energy. And Maxine Waters created a nonprofit and a political platform. Karen Bass and others created a platform. She's now in Congress. Najee Ali became an activist. Jesse Jackson, of course, became even more prominent. Operation Hope emerged on the scene, and we've helped 4 million people. We're the largest in the country right now, and a platform for empowerment of our people. You have got to make this intelligent and thoughtful and have a plan. So here's my offer to you. If you are a leader of any of these movements in this country and you're about protesting for progress, I will meet with you. Ambassador Andrew Young will meet with you. We can do it on Zoom, and we will help you create a strategy and a plan. Yes, I said it, right? And I want you to go to Louis.dees, Louis, Louis.deas at operationhope.org. Play this back if you didn't get that quickly. And coordinate with him a Zoom session with leadership of these various marches. I don't want to talk to anybody with a thug mentality talking about burning this stuff down, because it makes no sense. Burn it down to build it up. You can't burn it. You can't build up what you burn down because you don't own it, right? Right? It's just a bunch of la, right? But if you want to plan and you want to figure out what you can get as far as police legislation and on law enforcement and regulations and standards for police officers for brutality and approach. You want to talk about economic empowerment. You want to talk about education levels. You want to talk about health disparities. You want to talk about a new Marshall Plan for our people, or you just want to talk about what you can get in your city. I will help you. My team will help you craft a business plan for yourself so that you can be effective in what you're doing. So there's my offer. I'm not preaching to you. My nephew Mason says, don't preach to this generation. I'm not preaching to you. I'm being passionate. I'm pouring myself into you, and I'm saying I've now removed all the excuses. I've told you the history. I've told you it repeats itself, and I've told you and I've proven, go do the research yourself, that all this yah, wah, screaming and hollering, black power movements, the black power movement came from Dr. King. The guy who started Black Power was standing next to Dr. King because he couldn't get his own voice. He didn't have his own legitimacy. He took from Dr. King, co-opted it, took all the emotions of people who didn't want to wait for what Dr. King was doing and got them all riled up. But for what purpose? What did they build? What institutions do they own? Where are the businesses? Where are the jobs? Where are the educational institutions? Where is it? Even the black Muslims realized you had to have structure with that frustration, and they created stores and restaurants and schools and churches and I think they call them mosques, I'm sorry, and they created infrastructure. You can't do anything without a business plan. Frustration is not going to get you anywhere, but dead or written off. And I want you to be taken seriously. Now, I'm going to be on CNBC tomorrow morning talking to business leaders. You won't be here this kind of passion, because that wouldn't go over very well with them. It would scare the bejeebers out of them. And you're probably not going to be watching that show, so I'm going to have a different message. But I'm talking to you straight up now. And there's 1.7 million followers on my platform to make sure everybody gets this message on my platforms. But I want 50 million people to watch it, which means I need your help. I need you to share. Oh, Mark Wilson. I'm trying to see some of the comments here before. He said, Jocelyn Buchanan, wow. Okay, Javier, is the outsider that's destroying and thus deflecting. Sounds like these groups are using the Turner Diaries book. I don't know about that. Thank you, Julia, saying please share the live, guys. Okay, so look, everybody share this video, put it on your page, share the ones on Instagram, share that, put it on LinkedIn, put it on Instagram, put it on Twitter. Take snippets of it, start a conversation, and look, challenge what I'm saying. If I said something that's not legit, then talk to me about it. Someone wants to call me an Uncle Tom. Let me tell you something. If an Uncle Tom creates $3.5 billion in home ownership and small business ownership for black folks, if an Uncle Tom creates 4 million clients, and 22 offices, 153 offices for financial and economic empowerment and free services and free coaching and counseling for the underserved in 22 states. If an Uncle Tom counsels Republican and Democratic presidents, if an Uncle Tom's been honored by 5 of those presidents without giving up his values, if an Uncle Tom now has 2 million followers on social media and 100 million video views and people following a new way to think and giving people optionality in their life, if an Uncle Tom gets called, I got so many calls I can't keep up with my phone diary. If that's an Uncle Tom, we should want everybody to be an Uncle Tom. Let's stop it. Let's stop the madness. I don't care what people say about me. It's okay if somebody don't like me. I like me. Or to quote Quincy Jones, not 1 ounce of my self-esteem and self-respect depends on someone's acceptance of me. No one has called me that. I'm just saying, before you get off on that drama, because it happens every time one of these situations pops off, people get emotional. When somebody's rational, they want to discount it by saying, oh, you're just with the man. You're just an uncle. What does with the man mean? So if a black man becomes a billionaire or millionaire, is he the man? If a black woman becomes successful, is she now the woman? I mean, what does that mean? I don't even understand what that means, right? Like, this is about green, the color green, money. That's what this boils down to, right? We don't have it, and we get disadvantaged, and we get taken advantage of and treated with indifference. And once we create wealth generational wealth for our community, the racism won't stop because people are racist. But they'll stop messing with folks for whom there's consequences, just like they don't mess with my Jewish friends, right? So there's never been a riot in a 700 credit score neighborhood in all of America's history. You know that? What was George Floyd in? A 500 credit score neighborhood. I know, I got the data, right? So they didn't think that bothering him mattered much because it's a 500 credit score neighborhood. Whether it's a check casher, next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store. I'm tired of it. We have got to try a new plan. We have just got to try a new plan. This is a radical movement of common sense. It's time to get to it. I love you. Let me know what you think. I'm out. Come see me.